Hey y'all, thanks for joining me for part 2 of this 4-part series on the prophets, the newest detailed prophecies. We started with part 1 that had to do with the evil satanic networks that have been exposed recently, and I just want to wrap up a little bit of that in this beginning portion here that I'd been thinking about. Past few days, I watched a few reports on these Epstein files that were terrible, and usually I don't watch much of that at all because I'm not able to stomach it very well, so it was difficult, and I wasn't able to sleep last night very well at all because it was like I was having nightmares. It was really terrible. What makes it worse is that nothing is being done. There's no nothing, no arrests, nothing. It's frustrating and worrisome for the survivors and other children out there that could become victims because of the fact that these people have not been put away out of society where more children can get hurt. As I said in a recent response to a viewer's comment the other day, what makes this worse than ever before is that these evil networks have been able to exist for so long, 30 to 40 years, that they've spread their tentacles all over the world, affected thousands of people. And so it's not that these horrible sins, these heinous sins and acts and crimes have not existed since the beginning of humanity on earth. It's become more prevalent, and it's much larger. I can see why. As I said, no accountability, no punishment, no arrests, no jail time. As I've been thinking about all of this, I thought to myself that these people have been living in a world and lifestyle that has no limits, no consequences, no moral disciplines, no responsibilities. They have become gluttons on their own wealth, power, and control of those who have no power. They're drunk on it, unknowingly living in bondage to the devil, which ultimately leads to emptiness and a life with no real good purpose. Living in such a manner, they forget about God. Maybe they think, who needs a God when I have everything? I am a God. I have all the power like a God. There's a sad aspect to this whole deprivation of humanity that my soul recognizes, but there's also the recognition of all the harm they've done to thousands of innocents, and they need to be stopped for the good of all, including them. This brings me to what St. John the Russian had said, and I did a video on it many months ago. I'm going to remind you of what he said about the children, the sake of the children, and why he said we need a war. So I'm going to go to that now. This is from an older video. It says, Metropolitan Neophytos is speaking here. He says, St. Iakovos, for example, one time he went to venerate the relics of St. John the Russian, which is in Evia, or Evia. He saw the saint alive. The two saints, St. Iakovos and St. John the Russian, were talking. At first, since St. John is a pilgrimage, just like St. Cyprianos is a pilgrimage for you, St. Iakovos said to St. John as a compliment, so many pilgrims arrived to see you, my St. John. You must be really happy. St. John the Russian replied, the pilgrims are many, Father Iakovos, but the faithful are only a few. The world is full of impiety, immorality, and unfaithfulness. For this world to be fixed, there must be a war. St. Iakovos was upset when he heard these words because he was a refugee from Asia Minor. He had experienced war ever since his childhood like few have. No more war, he tells St. John. No more war is a lifetime of warfare. In 1922, the Asia Minor disaster, the Turks sent us away from our homes. Then the Second World War. Then the Civil War in Greece, communists against right wings. They were killing each other. Then we had so many disasters in Cyprus, Russia, the whole world. Why war again? St. John the Russian replied, there has to be a war. There has to be a war. There has to be a war. There is no other way to fix humanity. When St. Iakovos was telling me this later, I was a university student back then, and I asked him, why do you think Elder St. John the Russian insists on the fact that there will be a great war? He told me, God revealed to me that the next generations of people will not give birth to normal children, but devil children. Wow. This is what he told me, and he gave me no other interpretation. Now think of the people of the New Order who say that the next children will be a mixture of artificial intelligence. That is like robots and half humans. And they advertise this. It is going to be the so-called meta-human. They want to repair the creation of the true and God. The rest of the saints I mentioned earlier, they all say the same thing. If God does not intervene, the following generations will not be an image of God. Wow. So that's what St. John is saying. Look, we got to stop this because we're not going to have, the next generation is not going to be regular humans in the image of God. I just want to say, I was thinking the other day, I told my son, I said, I can see why we're in the last days, according to my bishop. He said that a couple years, 3 years ago. Because where can a human go after all this AI stuff? How can anything be better for a human, for humanity? I don't see any other direction to go but down. Deterioration, not a higher aspect of itself. Did you ever think about that? I just had to put that out there because it reminded me by reading that. So this is why St. John the Russian said that. So now I'm going to get into what the unnamed elder had said regarding what was going to happen to America. The civil strife, the civil wars, the uprisings, the coup, also the anger because of these uprisings from the people and what that means. So let me get to that. This is what he said, kind of a reiteration that he has said before, but he says on January 29, 2021, he repeated the warning about America. In America, great and terrible events will unfold, possibly igniting widespread unrest among the people. Yes, even a civil war. If such a conflict erupts, it will not remain within the traditional political framework, but will extend across racial, religious, and ideological divisions, affecting groups such as whites and blacks, Christians and Muslims, and other societal factions. The consequences will be severe, with immense losses stemming from the fury that will surge through the population. He says, with immense losses. This is really huge. And the reason why is because immense losses is different than what Metropolitan Neophytos had said about what he'd heard from the elder Theodore, who had said there was going to be a civil war in both America and in Greece, but in America it would be a handful of days, so like 5 days, on one hand. And he said, yes, blood would be shed, but he didn't innocent blood, but he didn't really mention what the amount would be for that. How many. He didn't. It didn't sound like it was going to be a lot, but now maybe because it wasn't specified as this is. I don't know, because that's the Civil War section, which was small. So what the unnamed elder is saying is much more. It seems more long term than 5 days. I just wanted to point that out. So let me say that again. Severe, with immense losses stemming from the fury that will surge through the population. The fury. Very important, this part. This anger, driven by political, religious, and racial tensions, will culminate in devastation. Nature itself will respond with destruction emerging from the San Andreas Fault. We know that part. This is important, again, because our actions, our collective sins, cause natural disasters, the way I believe and understand. This is what we do. Our collective sins cause a lot of catastrophes and damage and all that in the world. So I can see why he's saying that this would affect Earth, because the Earth groans from our sins. It's heavy with our sins. So let's go on to this next section. That's important because it's connected with the global collapse of the economy. So what it says here on September 14th, 2021, he warned of economic collapse. The global economic collapse will begin from America. The dollar will become worthless and the euro will evaporate. The euro will no longer exist. Banks will collapse, capital will fall, and from Greece, the capital will flee. There will truly be great chaos. You will live through all of this. Yeah, he's saying we will live through all of this. Amazing. People will be terrified by everything that happens, yet it will also be for the good, because humanity will finally learn the truth, and those who created all this will be exposed. At the very moment when the collapse of the banks is unfolding, they will shut down the electronic system. The internet and everything else will stop working for several hours, and perhaps even longer. The same will happen with electricity. My children, prepare yourselves for the economic crash. They will try to shut down all channels so that no transactions can take place. Nothing. All of this will come with great force. With all this, we will see suicides, uprisings, and civil wars in various countries. On October 6, 2021, brought another financial warning. The dollar will be destroyed within an hour, and this will happen at midnight. While the world sleeps, they will know nothing. I remember hearing this in one of his other videos, the Holy Wisdom Channel's videos. This will be, in your words, the lockdown of the banks. People will be in great need. Banks will collapse, capital will fall, and from Greece, the capital will flee. There will be chaos. So I'm going to get into the rest of this in the next part of the series, because the next part of the series is the actual war with all the countries. That'll be my next portion that I'll share with you. That's important because he gets into detail on certain countries that we hadn't heard before. So it's really important to share that. The situation we're in right now, it was the next morning after I'd done the video for part 1 of this series that my good friend, texted me, and the tone of the text was so, you could tell she was in so much pain and worry over all of the horrible things going on. Basically there's little love for others. People are fighting with people all the times. Everybody's their enemy now. Another political party is an enemy with the other political party. if you don't believe the same thing as what this person believes, then, oh, well, I don't want to talk to these people. This is what this world, and especially in this country, has become. You can't, even with your family, with your friends, there's just constant, cutting off of people if they don't agree with you. There's this lack of any type of empathy or love with what's going on, what's happening to people. There's a lot of suffering going on. So all of this is happening. And, I was really upset over that. I was thinking about it today. I was driving home and I was listening to that old 90s song by Whitney Houston, Waiting to Exhale. I always liked that song. And that the mood of that song was how I was feeling this afternoon. So this is why I decided to share my thoughts. Because, St. Paisios says, do not allow our hearts to grow cold. If you have a hardened heart, God can't reach you, and it's to our own destruction. We must cling to Christ and stay strong and keep our hearts warm, because all of this evil is accumulating, which will bring about civil strife, as we see what it'll bring about. We just saw what the elder said, and others have said. This will happen. So with all this evil around, we need to counter it with goodness, holiness. This must spread around the globe as well. Like the wings of a butterfly, of the chaos theory, if anybody's familiar with that. The wings of the butterfly. What we do, good or bad, reverberates like the wings of a butterfly across the world and the universe. Right now, as I said, there's a lot of darkness. Doesn't seem as much light. Let's keep our prayers more often. Let's do them more often. We have our morning prayers, we have our evening prayers, we have the Jesus prayer. Let's try to keep those up and do more of the Jesus prayer, which is, supposed to be a 24/7 thing, but, obviously it's difficult, our daily routines, but let's just try to get a few more Jesus prayers in the day, during the day, so that we as best we can, so that we can hopefully, pray that God has mercy on us all, that He lessens what's to come, and that He watches over us, and that we stay on the path towards Him. God bless you all. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing if you think my content is interesting and informative to you. Did you like it? If you like my videos, go ahead and give me a like. That helps the algorithms. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to help me in even more supportive ways, you can hit the super thanks button in the panel below this video. Or if it's not right showing, then you can see it under the 3 dots in the panel, and you just click on that and it should be in there. Or you can buy me a cup of coffee. I have the link in the description. Thanks so much.